Hail and welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, the Sorcerer. I'm on a soul. It has been a while since I did a video in my own defense, if there is a defense. I have had an interesting last 5 days. I've just not been feeling like doing much anything if it's not mundane. So I took a little bit of a break from all the serious things and just decided to have a normal day. And then one day turned into 2 days, 2 days into 4 days. But anyway, I've been at this for about 22 years. And there's something interesting, is that back in the day, I always wanted a hardback version of the Necronomicon. Well, back then, there was no way to get it, they didn't have Amazon and all this other stuff. But the times, they are changing. And then so, I got my hands on a 31st anniversary edition of the Necronomicon. It is very beautiful, very well constructed. Hardback, soft cover, silver inlay. It's the 31st anniversary edition made in 2008. During what at that time was the 31st year anniversary, literally. But, a book like this, and you think, I want to take care of it, I want to protect it, how would you do that? Well, let me tell you. I had ordered a book back last year entitled The Black Book of Azathoth by S. Ben Kane, one of the best sorcerers to date. And anyway, it comes from Become a Living God, and they had given me a bag. A book bag. Imagine that. To put it in. Well, the book is actually smaller than the bag, which is kind of weird. But you know what? Me being the kind of guy who holds on the small bags for to put your rings in, put gems in, all this other stuff, I held on to it. And when I got the Simon Necronomicon, it fits perfectly in it, which is awesome. Also, for any of you out there who are into S. Ben Kane, a book that I highly recommend, The Book of Smokeless Fire. Now, anything by S. Ben Kane is what he entitles fringe magic, which is cool and all. But his stuff, he's not an armchair theorist. He doesn't just sit there and just think up stuff right in a book and just, tries to sell books. This is a guy who has seriously dedicated a big chunk of his life into the practice, into, understanding the psychology of it. And so all his writings are actually well worth investing in. He's got a new series of books coming out now where he deals in the Qliphoth. The very first one that he has that is out now is called Thaumiel, the Dark Divided Ones. So if you ever get a chance, get on Facebook, look up S. Ben Kane, and befriend him, and just see the stuff that he has. He, even though he's separated from Become a Living God and still doing his own thing, he's still a sorcerer. S. Ben Kane, dude's a badass. Just read his writings; he's really good. All right. Well, enough of all that. Starting a new series here where I wanted to not necessarily delve into just the Necronomicon or, get into different things, but just a place in the digital world here where I could, discuss different things. Not just, the Necronomicon, but maybe the teachings behind it. So this is a new series. I'm going to be calling it the Sorcerer's Corner. Oh, yeah. And the first episode, which is this one, Age of Magick. All right, let's get started. Enter the theme music or something like that. One day when I get skillful enough, I'll be able to edit these and put on snazzy music and entertain you people. But until that day, you still got to deal with me. All right. So anyway, Age of Magick. Let's just think about time and how it's passed. Okay. Nowhere in the history of mankind, the theory of being magical, being out in the social setting, into the world around you. We advertise magic, whether white witchcraft, black magic, whether, hermeticism, alchemy, anything. You think back that, mankind's been practicing magic forever and a day, but never has it been at the forefront in society, being advertised and everything else, as it is right now. And so, with that in mind, I kind of like to harken back to a concept provided by in Thelema, where it talks about the eons, and this being the eon of Horus, or in the Western world, it's the age of Aquarius. Well, it don't matter what you call it. I call it the age of magic because this is an exciting time for all of us. We get on here, we make videos about magic, we offer magic courses. I mean, everything else. Nowhere else in our history of our civilization has it been okay to do that. You know, it was looked upon with great fear. I'm not saying that it's not still looked upon with fear, but it's become more acceptable. And I think that this says a lot for the evolution of society as a whole. There are drawbacks and things to be watching out for. Uh, there's a new author by the name of J.S. Garrett, uh, who Ashbjorn Torval has interviewed twice, which I love the guy. He's freaking awesome, down to earth, knows his stuff. And he talks about, there's going to come a time where it's going to become illegal. It may not. I don't know these things, but I do know one thing. I do know that we must proceed with caution because, in a legal sense, you could be seen as casting a spell on somebody, could be seen as intimidating them or threatening them. So I can see where, it could start to cause legal ramifications later on down the road. But let us not begin to fear or to be afraid. Let us instead seek to understand these things that, govern our everyday life. Don't let one bad apple ruin the batch, so to speak. But for tonight's subject discussion, the Age of Magic, I wanted to take you, the viewer, on a little bit of a journey, a little bit of a sightseeing tour, if you will. Now, let us think of how things have progressed throughout the ages. All right? So, we can go back throughout history, and we can see how magic's progressed, how it's become. Now, if we sit here in the normal day and age, and we sit here and we're only thinking about the stuff that affects us and everything else, and doing magic and everything else, that's great. Take care of that. But for some of us, some of the serious scholars, the ones who really truly want to understand and know, because as it says, those who don't remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And so let us not. So speaking of which, let us go to one of the greatest misunderstood magicians of all, Jeebus, the Christ. Okay, well, check it. In his day and age, he was a rebel against the church. Okay, here's a guy that the Bible talks about his birth, and then he disappears from the pages. And then at 33, comes out of the woodwork. Dude starts an uproar, starts getting followers and all this other stuff, creates these 12 disciples, apostles, whatever you want to call them, and he starts guiding these people, and it's a revolution, okay? Because you got to understand how things develop and how they become, you have to think of two things: the sociological timeline and the political timeline, okay? And to do so, you have to understand what religions were prevalent at the time. Well, of course, you had so-called paganism in the form of Greek gods, Roman gods, so forth and so on. This is also during the time that the Jews, were practicing. Not that they weren't practicing, because it's a religion thing. But anyway, you had this fundamental belief of the Jewish faith, okay? And here comes this young guy just out of the woodwork, talking about he is the Son of God. Well, this went completely against their stuff. They're like, no, there is God and only God, so forth and so on. Kind of like how the Muslims say, there's Allah and there is his prophet, Muhammad, so forth and so on. Well, Christianity didn't have the prophet. Christianity in the early days, when it was the Jewish faith, was just, there was God. This guy this being that could some days have a good day and love you and bless you for worshiping and adoring and following him. And then other days he would just punish the shit out of you. But we're not really getting off into the Jewish faith. I'm just making a point here. that is, as far as the rebellious spirit goes, and the breaking of religion and freeing the people from the slavery of following, enters this figure by the name of Jesus, Yeshua, whatever. Now, what's so interesting about this fella is that, like I said, the Bible writes about his birth, writes about him when he was 33 and got baptized by his cousin, and led this new form of belief that later became known as the Way, which I think is interesting. But at any rate, it was a shattering. It was a breaking. It was like he was there to shake up the belief systems and the structures, to break them out of their molds. Quit saying you become stodgy. You've become too settled, too chill, too relaxed. You've become a slave to your own faith, your own belief that should be giving you life and should be exhibiting signs of joy and fulfillment and all this other stuff, and so he came in like a whirlwind, tearing it up. And like a lot of people that are staunch and set in their ways, they can't abide by change. And so he represented change, and it was a change they were not happy with. And so they come to the Roman leaders and they're like, "Hey, we find this guy wrong." And Pilate's like, "I find nothing wrong with this guy. That sounds like a personal problem. You guys got to deal with this yourself." Until finally they figured out a way to get him involved so that the Romans had no other choice but to get rid of the guy, get rid of their threat, their problem. Now, this is all based on history that we know of out of the Bible and so forth and so on. And there are certain diverse places where you can find, different information on it. And whether or not you believe in the Nicene Council, where it was said that they voted on whether or not to say that Jesus was the Son of God and put it into the Bible, in which case then it became so. And, and then I can start to understand why the Jews are like, we got the Torah, which is the Old Testament, the first 4 or 5 books, something like that. And so they got their own thing going, but Christianity in a whole then came out to being, and it just took on like wildfire. It swept through Rome, and then we look at Islam. We look at the Muslim faith, and it's just like, there's all these different forces and things, and then we come back to the Necronomicon. We come to the Mad Arab. Mad Arab apparently was running from the Muslims. It was unlawful to practice so-called magic in their faith, and that comes back to the point of what I'm trying to make about this Age of Magic, is that we don't remember the seeds of the struggles and the challenges and everything else. We in our present age are looking at a very bleak future if we're not cautious, careful, and actually constructive with the way in which we go about this. Like I said, this is not to bring fear or anything like that. It's not to make you paranoid, and it's not to bring up religions and all this other stuff. It is just to, I'm putting this out there because, where else do you put that kind of a thought? Because as an occultist, as a magician, as a sorcerer, as a practitioner, I have always believed in educating myself, because it is not enough to know a spell or how to cast a spell or circle casting and ritual. But I've always been curious and wanting to know, where did this kind of art come from? What started it? What gave it life? What gave rise to the need for it? Was it something that always lied dormant in our souls that was bound to come out one day or another? Was it something that was created out of necessity? Because necessity is the mother of invention. Or, what came about it? And with this in mind, I delved further back, and I looked at the times in history, the wars between one another, when the tribes against tribes and so forth and so on, and then people against people. Then as civilization set up, it became more a way of making the people docile, so that there would be less fighting. They were like, give the people what they want, let them believe however they want to, let them do whatever they want to, as long as it follows the majority, and as long as it is calm and keeps them under control. Now, this isn't some, government conspiracy thing to rule over the people. No. It was just a way that these governments, that these rulers found that if you give the people what they want, what they really want, which is their own faith, their own belief system, be able to practice it, you're going to have a chill people to rule over, because everybody wants security, everybody wants food, everybody wants housing, clothing, stuff like this, the basic needs that they teach you. Well, whoever was set up over the authority, the control, the kings, the rulers, the czars, the prince, whatever, these people that were set up over them, the people would follow them and would give them the right to rule and so forth and so on. As long as their rulers looked favorably upon them and gave them what they needed, then they in turn would give the rulers what the rulers needed. And this is where order came in. There's nothing wrong with this, but you've always got to remember that it is the majority consensus that will win over every time. This is why it has not always been safe to be a practitioner. We haven't always been able to be out in the limelight. We haven't been always able to share our thoughts, our opinions, our feelings, and our personal practices. With this in mind, let's think of the age that we live in now. How do you represent yourself? How do you represent your belief, your practice, your faith, as it were? For me, myself, and I'm happy being in my home. I don't have to go out and proselytize. I don't have to go out. I don't even get on here to try and push people. Oh, it's a Necronomicon. It's a holy word. It is the word of the gods. Oh, Necronomicon is for me. That's my thing. That's what I do. I ain't got to preach about it. I ain't got to, try to convert believers and followers and shit. No, man. Because the reason why is because there's a spirit attached to it that has called out, that has made a spiritual, emotional, mental calling. And to those whom resonate to it, they come across it, they find it. And when they do, their lives are transformed and changed. And they work through it. Kind of like Christianity is not for everybody. Islam isn't for everybody. Buddhism isn't for everybody. So forth and so on. And those are by no means the majority of religions. There are tons of belief systems out there. To each their own. You must find your own path. Only you know the way. Which I always thought that was funny when they referred to Jesus as the light and the way. I kept thinking, follow me, I know the way. And Waylon, Way Way, which my nephews and nieces call me Way Way. I don't get that, but it's cute. And then I think about stuff like that, and I find humor in it. And I never take it seriously because I don't consider myself a savior or anything like that, because I am by no means the archetypal hero nor villain. I am who I am. I'd be more like a hermit without the wanting to stay inside. I like people. I like to get out and socialize and, converse and have deep conversations. And sometimes I just like to shoot the shit, And I think that that's the way society in general needs to be. But what I think it should be like doesn't mean anything. And therefore, I only worry about my own world, my own life. And therefore, I make my everyday life in accord with my faith, with my belief structure, with my rituals, as it were, my day-to-day things that I do. And I concur that, everybody needs to find what it is that they believe, because it doesn't matter what you believe, only that you believe. And the reason why is because faith is a foundational stone upon which your sanity rests. This doesn't mean you have to have something to believe, because I've met a lot of really cool atheists that are level-headed and just, they seem like they know what they're doing, even if they believe in nothing more than just they exist. But my point isn't to get into all of that. It's just that we each need to find our own way. And in this age of magic, oh my goodness, we are given the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. With everybody sharing their ideas, their knowledge, their wisdom, their understanding of things. This is an awesome time to be alive. I'm very thankful to be alive in this time and age. I think I've been at this for 22, almost 23 years now of just practicing, not of being alive, but of practicing. And then I see these young people coming up, man, they're in their 20s. I mean, I'm right here at 40. And I see these young 19, 20-year-olds, and I'm just like, wow, dude, you're like a fire. Go, go, you. And I think that that's beautiful because we need more like that. We need minds that question and challenge. We need the stirring of the cauldron, so to speak. We need to be challenged mentally, emotionally, physically. It's the spice of life. And, you know, I can't help but think that, of all the people that watch this, what's your practice? What's your belief? What makes you feel like you exist upon this plane? You know, it may be simple. It may be extravagant. It may seem stupid to some, and it might seem cool as hell to others. But to me, I'm just going to think it's fucking awesome because you're here. And see, and I love that. I love how we can all do this. How we can each do our own thing. You know. Albeit from the fact that sometimes we have to deal with people whose ego is so out of whack, so out of control that they think that their way is the only way, their belief system is the only belief system, so forth and so on. But thankfully, we as individuals do not have to deal with that. And if we do, if it's digital, you can always unfriend them, you can ignore them, you can, not take their phone call, their text, you can tell them get away from your door, whatever you want. It's a wonderful day and age. And with that in mind, this is a great time. I'd like to hear some of y'all's takes. I'd like to, drop a message here. Tell me what it is that, in the Sorcerer's Corner. Tell me what it is that, that is your take on it. What do you enjoy? What is your practice? What is the thing that makes you you? That makes you individual, isolate, unique, different. And even if it somehow falls in line with something that thousands of others have done, your own particular approach is unique, is individual. That doesn't make you a sheep. It doesn't make you a follower. It makes you one in the number. And, for sake of not wanting this video to go on too long, I want to say hail to every single one of you, my brothers over at the Black Tower on Facebook, and to our newest member, William Hill, which if you have a chance, go check out some of his videos. Also, out to Joe March, which is the Grand Infinity. You guys need to check his channel out. He is freaking awesome, period, end of story. Asbjorn Torval. Asbjorn Torval's, I think it's his wife, Joey Morris. She has her own channel. Now, that chick, as Witch goes, is just freaking phenomenal. I love listening to her videos because, she's quite insightful with a lot of things. Lamadou Dingir, Priest of the Necro, YouTube. Check him out. Freaking awesome. Indigo Speaker. I don't know if any of you have went to his channel. Indigo Speaker's pretty cool, though. I like his videos when he puts out videos, which aren't very often, but when he does, they're insightful, they're intelligent, and they are what they are. And to each one of you, my viewers, I wish each and every single one of you peace and blessings. Until next time.